I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man,
On this
that
sad
is a
clown.
sad clown.
Proud of my address.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha Packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
We know this guy is he's a golfer. I think he just told us he won the 2014 Masters.
Drinking maybe or something. Yeah.
But he's definitely been. I know just pre-runs and watching this guy lead and posting downrange, and just F3 Omaha, but also F3 Nation in general is better because of this man. So excited to talk to our man Swiper today. Swiper, why don't you start us off at the beginning? Who EH'd you? What was your first workout like? Was it a difficult workout, that sort of thing? And then how did we get to the name Swiper?
Yeah, no, that's great. So the EH story is short but long. It was a Friday night during the pandemic, so March of 21, and I was coaching girl dad's daughter, Daphne, in basketball. And we're masks, no one ever talks, and you don't socialize with the parents, which was really tough for me, as someone who likes people a lot. And we were standing at the landing, and there was another coach in the middle of us, and that coach left. And so it was Dave and I standing there, and he introduced himself, it's Dave Hilliard. And we talked for a second, and then I just had this memory of a Twitter video, which was his VQ at the Sanitarium. So I'm like, oh, Hilliard, I saw you on Twitter in the pitch dark, bunch of snow, what the hell was that? And he explained something to me I don't even really remember, about this workouts, and he's like, blah, blah, blah. He's like, what, you want to go tomorrow? And I'm like, well, sure, I'm not doing anything. So it was a 10-minute EH. I went the next day, and that was the pit. So he's telling me there's a guy leading. He's not done that much, with Skittles VQ. Plague, you were there. I just watched the video. You were there. It's, 30 guys, which watching it now, tons of OGs, like Spacebar and Tater and Khakis and you. Roll bar, so he's like, well, we sometimes will run beforehand. We'll do a 5K before these workouts. And then he's like, well, and sometimes some guys do a 10K, like crazy guys, and so I'm like, well, let's do the whole thing, I guess. So this is when the workouts were at 7. So we, I show up at 6 to do, the first of 2 pre-runs. And I was a runner, but didn't work out much. So we get on this first pre-run, and there's at least 10 guys there, at 6, maybe 15, huge group. And we all start running together, and someone's asking me, what's my name or whatever. And I'm like, Josh, Josh Focek. And some guy from the back's like, Focek. He's like, is your wife Katie? And immediately I'm like, oh boy, what does this guy, what does he know? I'm like, yeah. And then it starts to get really weird. And then he's like, well, is your dog named Bailey? And now I'm like freaked out. It's pitch dark. I don't know anybody. And this guy knows my wife and my dog. And so this is Baby Shark. And he's like, yeah, your dog Bailey, I have Bailey's sister, Reba. Same litter, number 7 and number 8. He's like, we actually almost bought both dogs because they were like hugging and cuddling, when we went to buy Reba. And so and I learned he lived a block away. I didn't know him, never met him, and here he is on this workout. So we do the workout at Skittles VQ. It was cold. I didn't have proper gloves. My hands were numb, and the workout was tough. It was an hour-long workout and really tough for me. At the end of it, we played knockout. So I was finally like, okay, finally, I coach basketball. I played. This is right up my wheelhouse. Literally, I airballed every shot. Right, because we're doing push-ups and all this crap. I can't even hit the rim. I'm thoroughly embarrassed and pissed, and I just whatever. I remember Knobs was there teaching me how to do a box cutter, and I'm just like, what in the world is going on? It's whatever. So we go back, and he explains the Name-A-Rama thing, and I'm whatever. It's kind of funny. I'm a funny guy, and so we do that, and then I go in the circle, and I felt like I was there for an hour. It's probably 10 seconds, who knows, but talking forever and saying stuff because I'll just fill the void. And there wasn't a ton of names, if I remember right, that were thrown out. And I think it was Knobs, and we've got some friendly competitions in Sarpy naming guys. I mean, probably in Omaha in general, but I'd say Knobs and I and Chernobyl, like we get pretty competitive to get F and G names. And so Knobs, asked me what I did. I'm in the credit card business. I run a few sales teams, in processing, and he just yelled Swiper. And I think, seconds after that, Skittles, Swiper it is. And here I am. So it's pretty, I've told that story to people, like, just because it's a funny entrance, a quick EH, I'm immediately pre-running, which, as we'll talk about, is a core to what I do in F3. I think it's one of the better ways to connect with people, and just jumped right in with kind of the full Monty, and, the rest is history. So.
Man, that's such a good story, and there's so many elements that you were ready. The timing of life seemed like you were ready.
Hungry, I'd say hungry. I was hungry for something, for sure.
What do you
there was a void.
Yeah, what caught you? Think that was pandemic related, or where were you at in life before?
Yeah, good question. I for sure it was pandemic related because I run a couple sales teams. I'm a really social guy, and I'd say I'm even more a physical guy. Like, I really like physical handshakes, hugging. It gets me in trouble sometimes. I'm not Joe Biden trouble, but gets me in trouble sometimes. Like that. I just am really friendly with people, and so the pandemic wiped all that away. Not only were you not getting together with people and hugging them and shaking their hands and all that, you weren't even seeing them. Period. You weren't around them. I wasn't around my team. I wasn't seeing prospects, customers on the road, and coworkers in other cities, and all those things. And I was looking for maybe a men's group, Bible study, some kind of fellowship thing. So when Dave explained it, like I was already kind of working out, and I always ran on my own. When I traveled, I would go run in a city. Like, oh, it's a great way to see Chicago or New Orleans or LA. And I just go run on my own, always. Never worked out with anybody. And, so that was whatever. But the chance to be around men, I just was like, oh man, I got to check this out, So it was certainly a void in my life at the time. And, for sure was because of the pandemic. I mean, we were a full year into it. Nothing had really changed. Everybody was still scared of their own breath, at that point. And it was, it was a dark time, honestly. And I didn't know much about your group, how you guys were like, kind of sneaking these workouts, and you could tell people just wanted to keep doing it, even though the world was like, don't go around anybody. We were still
I'm curious. Where were we at in terms of like F3 at the time? What were we doing in 2021 there? Were we having secret groups still, secret meetings?
So I didn't know. I mean, Plague would probably answer better than me, because when I started, I obviously it was 30 guys at a workout and no one was in a mask, but we were still in masks everywhere else. And then I started hearing about how you guys survived that kind of first year of the pandemic, piecing it together,
Yeah, we did. We did, just to clarify. So I think there was a time we basically just followed the government mandate, right? We wanted to follow the rules and respect the government that was in place. But outside of that, like there was a time when they said, hey, only groups of 10 can meet. So we would meet. And if there were more than 10 guys, we would split, trying to just respect that. And I think we ended up only closing down for a week. And we did the OYO, but not alone, virtual workouts. We had the Matrix, was the virtual AO, but I think by the time we were where you were at in 2021, we were back to, really.
Yeah.
Of course.
Hey, you did kind of mention something about how previously in your previous life, before you found the group, you were perfectly content going on runs by yourself. You didn't, hey, I don't need a group of guys to go run with me. I can, I'm disciplined enough to go and do it. Now, when you came, you're talking about this void. I mean, how quick was it until you realized that void was there? Like, hey, there actually is something here about being with these guys, and I'm actually getting something out of it.
Yeah, it's a great question. Immediately, you could just tell when, I made connections, like I said, with guys that first day, who I'd never met, and they were, these are lifelong connections now. I'd call great friends, of mine. It's funny. Was right now texting a bunch of guys asking for their addresses. I'm like, you're officially my friend now. I send you a Christmas card. So like I'm a full year into this now. You guys are actually real friends now, and you're a real friend when you get a Christmas card. And sorry for those of you who I haven't texted and aren't getting one, but whatever. It's like, we can only send so many. But no, it was immediate for me. Like, the cafeteria aspect. I've been to tons of Q source. Like you just connect with men specifically on a whole nother level that I had maybe had a little bit of it at church, which I don't probably, as a family, we don't do enough to connect outside of just going to service, where you can find personal connection because life gets so busy or whatever, we're pulled in all these directions. I really, that stuff hits me, like I like connecting with people, I get a lot of value out of it. And, I get more when I'm giving it away. So like I coach basketball a lot. I've mentored young kids. This clearly has all those elements, as the longer you're in it, and I go from being an FNG to leading a site to now like spend all my time just getting guys to do their VQ, honestly, like getting leaders to step up and encouraging guys, like teaching guys how to do cadence, just like Firewalker and JC taught me those first workouts when I didn't know what I was doing, or didn't know how to lead a workout or watch the time and all that, keeping things organized. Like now I do all those things because I naturally like coaching. So just all those connections, it was immediate. And honestly, it's really funny now when I travel and there's no F3 in that city, which I do it a lot on the road. Running alone is terrible. It's like I am slower. And I'll still do a half marathon like on the beach, and it takes me like half a day. It's terrible. I don't know what it is, but like I can't work out alone anymore. It's something has changed to where I just really look forward to not only just the workout side, but it's, talking to Farva, on a pre-run like this morning. We were at the farm and a bunch of guys showed up. This is Buster's VQ. It was a great morning. And I was like, I haven't done the old pre-run up the big hill. And the other guys just started going flat on the trail. He's like, yeah, let's go. And we just talked for 30 minutes. It was wonderful, and I just, that kind of stuff is, I really crave it. And you could tell immediately, to answer your question, that I was missing it.
Where, I just ran with Farva yesterday, and Farva and unicycle, and it's like a 7:15 pace, which was ridiculous. And I hadn't been pushing myself, but what I realized was I needed those guys to push me a little bit. But I'm curious from your.
I pull you, really. He was pulling me this morning.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Have you seen improvements in your fitness? Do you feel like faster pace or more endurance, or what's been your experience there?
Yeah, no, it's a great, for sure. Like I track my weight on an app, and there's a clear apex when I started, and in a descent, and it bobs up and down now, but it's a much lower plateau. It's very clear. I've done the most miles I've ever done. Like this year, I'm not going to hit Firewalker's 2,000 miles, but I'm going to be over 1,600, which will be the most I've ever done. And so my strength off the charts, like the Murph, I do usually 2 Murphs every Monday. I love the workout. I love its structure. I love running, but actually pull-ups, are the hardest thing for me. I'm a bigger guy. I weigh 210, so losing weight allowed me to do more pull-ups, obviously. And obviously doing that workout regularly too, I could just track from the point where I could maybe do 2 unassisted to get through, all 100 the way we do it. So yeah, there's no doubt how many push-ups I could do in a row, easily went from 35, 40 to 70 kind of thing. So I'm by no means the strongest guy or the fastest guy, but I could clearly see, personal gains, which, it's sometimes hard in this group to not compare to. There's a lot, like you just said, it took being around a couple fast dudes, like realize, okay, I could push a little harder. We have some unbelievable guys that just come out of the woodwork, and are just amazing. And it just inspires you to be better every day. It's like, that's what I think, honestly, I get the most out of it, is seeing, man, I'm dogging it a little bit. Look at these guys grinding. And it might even be someone not as fast as me or as strong as me, but they're pushing beyond their own limits, which we see on a daily basis, that, really motivates me. And honestly, picking up the 6, which I'll say around the country, people don't do like we do, is like one of my favorite things to do. And like, if I'm at a workout, they're like, oh, you can stay here or go pick up. I always run back to go find the guys in the back, you know, and so the kind of that side of working out, which you always get in a little extra running and helps your fitness. So I know mentally it's probably better for me anyway to do it, but it's like fulfilling too. So.
Well, you know, I'm curious about that point. You know, I think it's interesting that going to pick up the 6 kind of comes naturally to you. That's something that you are interested in. I remember when I was a PsyQ, someone had to remind me, like, hey, you got guys falling back here. Go back there and pick them up. So what is it about that concept that you were just naturally drawn to?
Yeah, I mean, it's something about, you know, you're only as strong as your slowest guy or the weakest link in the chain, that like you want to be with that guy, not only supporting him but helping him to get better. And I forget which one of the Sarpy guys, you know, helped me, probably Knobs, you know, who I picked the flag up at the Sanitarium from. Like when you're a site Q, and even this maybe Tater taught too, like there's a difference between picking up the 6 and being with the 6. And I will say that's probably something I struggle with. I don't be with the 6 enough. But as a site Q, it forced me to do it because I had a different job now. Like my job was now to run this whole site and make sure everything is clicking together. Everyone's kind of staying together. No one gets lost. And so as a site Q, for the first times in my F3 life, I was with the 6 many times. And that's a totally different feeling than picking up the 6, because now you're like just being with them, talking to them the whole time versus, oh yeah, I'll come back and get your slow ass, you know, and finish this workout kind of thing. Like I'm sure for those guys too, they get to a slightly different feeling. But so, you know, it's just something about like keeping us all together, that part of the credo, you know, and like I said, I go on the road and nobody does that. Like they'll maybe stop and wait for them, but like people aren't going back to get them, you know. And we have, especially like in Sarpy, where we have a bunch of guys who like to run. We've got tons of new guys that are, you know, different places on their fitness journey. We have a wide gap, you know, and you've got to think about your workouts and plan them around this. But if you're not doing that, I mean, you could have some major disruption to the way this is going to all flow. So to me, it almost kind of brings the whole thing full circle anyway, so that it runs smoothly. Everybody feels a part of it. No one's left out, you know. And I'm like in my business life, like the way I do my job, I'm always trying to keep everyone on an even keel, you know, and I use humor a lot to lower people down, make them more comfortable, you know, let people in, take down their guards, you know, but I'm always thinking about, like, we got to make sure this is all working together well, and picking up the 6, make sure they're not left out. And it's just kind of I do that all day, every day in my life, making sure everything is working smoothly together. So it just naturally happens in the workouts too, I think.
And that a lot to unpack there, a lot of really good stuff. One, I don't think I've ever heard anyone kind of create this distinction between picking up the 6 and, you know, being with the 6. And I think that's an important way to look at it, because you're right. There's been plenty of times where, all right, shit, I got here first, like running to this point. I know I kind of have a duty or an obligation just to go back and get the guy, instead of, hey, you know, I'm going to be intentional with my time and get back and make sure that this guy feels included. I'm bringing him up with me. I love that. And I really wanted to highlight your transition into your personal and professional life too, like how you're carrying that concept over is such a great thing that people need to be cognizant of. I guess a follow-up question from me would be, do you think we're carrying that concept over in other avenues of F3? Well, like whether that be in the second F or the third F.
We're carrying which concept, Pony? Picking up the 6?
Being with the 6.
Yeah. They are being with the 6. Yeah, you know, I mean, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. When you talk about, especially third F this time of year, like we start getting a lot of things going on, and it's sometimes really hard to keep up. But that's the great part about our group, is the unstructured way. Like if something's on your heart, you can just go make this a cause. And maybe you're not going to get the whole group to follow you. You'll get 1 or 2 guys to do it. So I think there's parts of F3, I guess it's maybe a little different, where when you get into some of that stuff, like some causes aren't for everybody. And so a lot of guys are going to get left behind. Maybe we're in a workout, you kind of all stick together all the time. But when you get in, like some guys don't drink, like Busser was talking about this morning in his BQ, how he's dealt with alcoholism, and, you know, he's been sober since September. And then right after that, we're talking about how we're going to Fairy Nectar, you know, for a happy hour. So it's like you have that push and pull where once you step outside of the workout, now you're going to have varying degrees of what involvement people want to have in things. It's not like you can't go to Fairy Nectar and have a soda and all that. It's a social thing, but you're around alcohol. Maybe you don't ever want to be around it because it's a temptation plague. You've got, your story is a powerful one, which you and I have talked about many times on pre-runs and heard you talk. I mean, so I think it's different, a little different, Pony. Like when you get into the second and third F, that you have a lot more variety and people going in a little bit different directions and more flexibility, where it's maybe harder to carry over that same concept that you might see in a workout. I don't know. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I love that question, Pony. I guess for me, the way I feel like it shows up right in some of our core principles, right? So we are actively being with the six, in the third F, right? When we don't prescribe what belief system people have to have, or so to me, I think we do a lot of that. But it is interesting, like we don't have, like if we're doing a coat drive or fundraising, we don't do a whole lot of fundraising for a guy in our packs that's struggling financially. And I don't know if that's because we don't have any pack members struggling financially, or if it's because, I don't know. That seems like that's hard to believe to me just in this day and age, but yeah, I don't know.
I bet there's tons. That's really interesting. Everything we do is outward. Like we're always helping other people, but if you think inward, there's probably tons of guys. I mean, we pray for guys. That's clearly a super powerful part of our group, whether it be, people struggling with, losing a child, someone in their family died, dealing with cancer. Like the bigger we get, like there's just so many of these stories in the mornings now when you go to that part at the end, that there's a lot of heartache. And we don't, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting way to think about it.
Hey, maybe for our 100th episode, we'll come back to this. We'll get Swiper back on and we'll solve the problem. I do want to get back to your story though, Swiper, because I think, so you mentioned the fitness stuff coming in and really connecting with some guys. Talk us through like the relationships and how those have developed over the last year. Maybe if you could share, what do you think it was that you did or participated in that helped to build relationships? Is it just the pre-running, like you said, or?
Yeah. Pre-running, I've told people, like I was even talking to you, like I think we should track pre-running. Like I think there's something to sites that have pre-runners and guys who do it. Like we have guys like Razzle Dazzle lately, because of his work schedule, only shows up to pre-run. Or JC's notoriously done a lot of that because he was doing other things where they don't go to actual workouts. So they miss everybody at the workout, but they'll come to pre-runs and then go home. Or Trench would do that because of his job. So, but that to me was probably the biggest area right away, because I wasn't doing Q source, didn't quite understand it. Maybe I wasn't always going to coffee because I had to bolt. But if you're getting there earlier, you're getting quality time with, usually as you start to run, if you know that, you usually pair up with one or two guys, the speed you're going that day. And, that's your 30-minute conversation. So that to me, and I tracked this year, like I had a fitness goal because I saw somebody else do the 250 workout goal. I broke it out and did a pre-run goal too. And I hit both of those goals in the last couple of weeks, 250 workouts, 200 pre-runs, not tooting my own horn, but my point was going to be, I pretty much pre-run every time I work out. And that's just become a routine where I just wake up. So it's like, why wouldn't I just go? And your body adjusts to that. So that's been huge to get to know, I would probably say there's probably 10 or 12, maybe 15 guys that, I've run with so many times you can't count, and they've just become really good friends. On the flip side, I'd say cafeteria, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, is because in workouts, you may talk to guys, but you're grinding and can barely breathe. And lately it's so super dark. I don't even know half the guys that are at workouts, honestly, until the end. So it's coming to coffee. And one thing I really like about Sarpy, and I'll give some credit to like KOA who started it, and now like Girl Dad and Baby Shark, like we do on-site coffee a lot. Guys are brewing coffee, which I found out you can brew the night before. These thermoses keep it warm all night long, which is unbelievable. And they bring it. And as you guys know, a lot more people hang out. Well, if it's already right here, I'll stay for 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes versus I got to drive there. It's going to cost me money. You just lose a percentage of the guys. So I go to coffee pretty regularly. And when it's on site, it's about 100%. And just hanging out, talking to guys is just a another great way to connect. And one other thing I picked up, I forget who did it to me early on, but it's texting guys after workouts. The Q, great job, love the workout, love this thing we did, great to see you. And I've seen Slow Pitch lately. He's awesome, at following up with guys and connecting with them. Obviously, that first week, it's why I met Tater on Wednesday, and I think I told this story when I passed the flag. Like, he came up to me, I didn't know who he was, didn't understand his role, and he just had a great smile, and we connected, and then he probably texted me, later that day. I mean, that's a great way. So I do that a lot as a way to connect with guys, especially newer guys that either come for the first time or I've met for the first time, and it's just a great way to connect with people. And I'd say Q Source is probably the apex of it, because you get really, you get a lot deeper in that, and guys will really open up, even if it's just about, their approach to work, or maybe their approach to faith and religion, or how they manage their family. Like Vandalay is a guy I've been around a lot. I can just remember Q Sources with him at Paradise, where he said some stuff that was really on point, and so he's just become somebody, that I don't see a ton, but we'll text back and forth. And he's a guy that I really appreciate and enjoy. So Q Source is just another way. So I'd say those three things around the workouts have been great ways to connect. And then I do a little bit of the fellowship, or the faith kind of stuff outside of, like, at the Sanitarium. When I had the flag, we did 3 or 4 like community service projects around the property, and I'll give credit to Double Dip, who I passed the flag to. I just kept asking them, what could we do? Like, we ended up tearing down a shed that the school needed tore down, because they were building a new one. And, guys are pulling the floorboards up, and there was a skunk living underneath the floorboards. So, like, and I wasn't there when it happened. They pull it up. They have some good pictures. Literally, the skunk that we would see around was living under the shed. He ran under some other mats that were in the corner or whatever. But we moved some huge benches, there was a storm last summer. We foregoed the workout and just cleaned up branches at Halleck, and I've been involved in the food pantry stuff. Just last night, I took my girls with Squeaky Clean and Chernobyl and Duracell and just gave all this stuff to the Tri-City Food Pantry. Like, all those are great things for the community, but also great ways you just connect with these solid dudes that we're with every day, So all those kind of things, I'd say I've taken different pieces from, and it's why I do them so much, every time I can, especially the pre-running, though. That's probably number one for me.
Well, and it sounds like there's a fellowship aspect of all those, even, kind of crossing over into the third app, right there. A lot of those things start to kind of meld together. And you mentioned at the beginning you were looking for maybe a Bible study, or, just some other way to connect with men. Is, for you today, I mean, have you gotten involved in a Bible study somehow, or is that Q Source maybe fulfilling that need, or how do you bring in spiritual aspect of faith?
Yeah, no, great question. I have not got involved in a Bible study. Thanks for pointing that out, that I still have not accomplished that goal. I did finish reading the Bible from front to back. So it took me 2 years. I had actually a customer of mine. So, I mean, I've always been confident in my faith. I was raised, my dad, who passed away this last year, dealt with mental illness a lot of his life, and, was around, but not maybe a core spiritual figure. So my mom fulfilled both the role of mother and father, and was very spiritual. And like, to the point where, we're Catholic. Catholics don't read the Bible. We read the Bible. She would have it open at night, and we'd be talking about it. And so I was talking with a customer, I'd get to the point where, like, customers and I that would become pretty good friends, like, we're out at a meal, we would pray together and stuff. And so this guy sent me, the Daily Walk, which is a Bible to read in a year, but it's a lot more than just the Bible. It has a full page of reflection. It breaks down the scripture, etc. Well, it took me, 2 years, a little over 2 years actually, to read it, because I don't read a lot. I fall asleep when I read, and I get distracted and look at other things, just like Plague's getting distracted with either something going on or a kid or whatever.
Well, no,
but this stuff,
I think I have that. I have the Daily Walk.
Oh,
great
you
resource.
were looking for it.
And that's so just to connect the dots. This is wild. Sorry, I'm totally interrupting. But that's the group that Firewalker, so Firewalker, Tonight Show, Grills, Sister Act, a couple other guys, right? That we were all in this men's Bible study 6 or 7 years ago. That was the initial book we were doing the men's Bible study on. So it's just cool to connect it up.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, it for me broke down. I mean, I had read the Bible before, but never read the whole thing. Never did the front to back. But you read so much and get distracted. It's very confusing. Old Testament's super hard. This was like took it to a whole nother level where it's just helping you understand. And I'll be honest, funny enough, outside of that, the most I've ever got out of the Bible was a Bible that my cousin got for my daughter because he was his goddaughter. It's called the Action Bible. It's actually a cartoon, like illustrated version of the Bible. And it told some of the stories in a way that I had never understood them. And so I read that front to back with a couple of my kids, different points in their life, and I learned a ton. So honestly, if you have young kids, I think the Action Bible is phenomenal, and it's super graphic, great pictures, but tells the stories. But yeah, so I read through that front to back, never joined a Bible study, but F3, and I forget part of the question, but I'll just say another thing I'm thinking has allowed me to really, I am not ashamed of my faith. Like I run a team, a couple different sales teams in a publicly traded company, and we open our team meeting praying. And I pray for the group. I open it up for them. And so it's become a great way for the team to be able to talk about things in their lives or their communities or with their families. And I do it in Jesus' name. And, in my company, before we merged, like they would start leadership meetings, this is in Columbus, Georgia, in the South, by having somebody give an invocation before this meeting of hundreds of leaders in person started. When we merged with this other company, that was a little more kind of New York. I mean, that stuff's all gone, but for me, it's not. And I told myself when I, was becoming a leader, which I was hesitant to do because I like just doing my own thing. I was probably too selfish and didn't want all the extra work. But I said, if I ever did, I wouldn't hide my faith from that team, and I'm proud to say, it's funny. We just had somebody join a team meeting last week, and they kind of just started jumping into what they wanted to cover, and I didn't open the meeting like we normally do. And a guy on my team's like, Josh, you're going to start us with a prayer first, which I almost cried on the meeting, honestly. And I was like, that's really, you can just tell it means something to these folks too. And they're all different religions, whatever, and I don't, almost like F3, like I don't make it about, I'm praying to Christ, but, to these people, I'm just praying for you or us or whatever. So I do that at work. But I don't, and my family, we're very spiritual. But I'd say like my friends and folks in the neighborhood I hang out with, it doesn't come up a whole lot, and then maybe they're not as receptive to it, or whatever. So F3 has really given me a whole nother avenue to get my faith out, to make it verbal. And to be honest, I'll blame you because it was at the pit maybe a few months later. And it was, I don't know, I'd been in a few months and you were queuing and you got to the end, you're like, hey, Swiper, why don't you take us out? I'm like, huh? I'm like, what? What do you, me? Out of the blue, you did not say anything to me. Like guys might be like, hey, do you mind praying after my workout? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And whatever, you just threw it to me blind. But clearly you and I had met and talked and, you felt comfortable I'd deliver, And so I was joking this morning, there's the last 20 workouts I've been at, I prayed us out at 18 of them. And I'm not leading any of these. I'm like, am I the Sarpy chaplain now? Like, what is going on? Everyone asks me to pray at every workout now. I'm like, I am the biggest sinner of all you dudes, but I'm not afraid to talk about it, and say it. So whatever. So a lot of guys are asking me to do it lately, which honestly is an honor, and I enjoy doing it. So, it's been a great avenue for me, in the workouts and Q Source too. Just to be able to kind of open up about things and talk about where you're at and what's important to you. I mean, this group clearly provides that, for guys who are looking for it. If you're not, whatever, and you just get to be around it. And that's what's also great about it is like, there's no judging or, like it's, we're accepting of it all. And, somebody was asking me this morning, like how you pray out, you pray to Sky Q. I'm like, well, some guys do. I pray to Jesus, but you can do whatever you want to do. Like, honestly, and no one really cares or probably will even notice. So, but it's, it for sure provides that.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that you have the confidence to kind of carry that over into your professional life. Do you feel like mean, I'm assuming so, but maybe did you feel like you had the same freedoms with your leadership role as a PsyQ? I mean, maybe talk to us a little bit about your time as a PsyQ as well. Maybe that's a good jumping point.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yes, I do, and I did, and Knobs, I'd say Firewalker, JC, the guys who have been kind of the initial lucky, the guys who've been leading sites in Sarpy when I started, kind of helped me through. But I saw my role as a site Q really to be like a coach for the Qs, helping them to be comfortable doing those kind of things, but always being there to kind of back them up if they needed help or whatever. And certainly guys throw it to the site Q or a lot to kind of help them out of that if they just assume we're going to handle anything that they're not comfortable doing, and that's certainly one of those things they would throw to the site Q a lot, which again, I was already doing it just as a normal PAX member, so it was no problem, no transition. Like I said, I enjoy doing it. Like, I enjoy praying with people, praying for people. Like when my children have a birthday, I have them in the middle of the room and I put my hands on them, just like, Abraham did to Isaac and Jacob, and they all are hating it now. The 13-year-old girls don't touch me. My 17-year-old son, but to me, like a father to give his children a blessing. I mean, there's really I have no more important job outside of serving my wife, which, I struggle at on a daily basis, but blessing my children is something I really take as a serious, job of mine. And my daughter, Chloe, I've prayed for a lot lately, and people are praying for her. She's struggling with some things. Like my priest at St. Gerald's, kind of reinstilled in me my role as the father of this house into, praying over my children, dealing with, spiritual things, evils of the world they're struggling with. She's having just things in her head like she's struggling with. And it was a great reminder that, that's my job to do that. And just kind of reinforced some of the stuff I was already doing on their birthdays. I should be doing every day, honestly, every night. So like every night with Chloe now, I'm praying over her and trying to clear her mind and her heart. And we're Catholic, like I'm using a little bit of holy water. It's sitting on her bedside. Now, if I don't do it, she's asking me, can you do it? Like, we haven't done that yet. Just like the guy on my team, like then you start to see a pattern and a routine that people get comfortable with these things, they miss them when they don't have them. Almost back to the beginning of, when I started in the pandemic, like, sometimes you forget until it's gone, these things that are really important to you or make you comfortable. And really, I'm just trying to make my daughter comfortable and kind of clear her out. But I'm also praying evil spirits that might be in her mind, calling them out and asking Christ to fill her up, and it was really cool when she's like, asked me, I didn't get enough holy water. Can I have some more? Or you forgot to do it. Can we do it? It's just a good reminder that, this stuff is hitting home. So.
Man, I love the example of just leading well, right? In your family, your community, at your workplace, relationship with your wife, with your kids. And I know you brought that to your role leading as a IQ. Curious, just, as you think about leadership and you think about what we're trying to do in F3 Omaha, any advice or, because I think, honestly, hearing you where you're at with some of these things, especially like spiritually, it's almost, it can be overwhelming, right? If a guy is still trying to figure out who is God, then praying with my kids is really far away. But any advice for guys that are listening on, what's the best next step, or what have you found?
Yeah, that's a big matzo ball. Honestly, it's, just, and this is part of what we say is believing in something bigger than yourself, like that you don't have all the answers. And honestly, like the best way to get comfortable and clarity and control is to let go sometimes and not think that you can control everything, be so tightly wound, then you can let go of fear and anxiety and just having a trust, and some of that comes with this group, like, just kind of trusting in this group. And, when you see a guy kind of let go and break down, in a COT or praying in a circle or something, that stuff is really powerful, but it is not easy to do. It is people have tons of anxiety. What do they say? Like, and the number one fear in America is public speaking. Number two is death, right? The old Seinfeld bit, they'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. I love that. Like, people are scared to talk. So opening up to this kind of stuff is very difficult, but I think you just have to start with kind of letting go, of control and thinking that you have all the answers, to something bigger than yourself. And maybe it starts with this group and eventually it could be some kind of higher power, to having some impact and influence on your life. But also maybe it's not having it be so big, Plague, it's making it smaller to where you can find a relationship with one guy, open up with one guy, like this group can be pretty overwhelming. And when you come in, like people with all these relationships, using all this lingo and this language, it's pretty intimidating, honestly. And it's so foreign to most of us when we start that, if you could just find one guy to connect with, one guy to have a direct conversation with and confide in them and get more comfortable in them. And then maybe they can help you along your journey. And now you've got 2 or 3 people, and so maybe not starting so big, it's starting smaller, on a more personal level, can get some guys maybe to open up a little bit more and kind of see some of the bigger stuff going on.
Yeah, I love that idea. And that just to, for me, there were 3 guys, right, that I first told about issues I was going through. And I remember Wait Time specifically said, hey, you don't have to give every person all the details of what you're going through, right? Like you need to, it's helpful to have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 other people, kind of that shield lock idea. But it was, and then the confidence builds over time to share it on a bigger scale, because you realize like I might actually be able to help somebody else, right, that might be going through it. But I love that idea.
Yeah.
Well, and it kind of highlights the idea of we're wanting these smaller groups, right? I mean, the whole concept was to have small workout groups. So it's not so intimidating. So we don't have these. I mean, it's great for VQs and stuff like that when we have 30 guys, 40 guys show up. It's sweet. On anniversaries, that's great. But you're right. You're hitting on a key point of like why we kind of starfish and do this expansion and have different sites. Well, it needs to be a smaller group so we can actually connect with that guy that's coming in. He's not as intimidated by these guys are all best friends. What the hell am I getting myself into? I don't know. It's going to be hard for me to kind of see my way in. Well, you're talking about, I guess, a question for you here. You're giving some advice, and I think it's good practical advice. Hey, let's, start with a solid base. Start with a smaller group and open up that way. You're also talking about how you're starting to express some leadership in your family. You're praying over people. You're praying over different groups professionally as well, and you're kind of implementing that in your life. I guess as you're giving advice, you're praying for others, I kind of want to reflect on you and just ask you, what is it we can be praying for you for? I think you do a great job of kind of identifying people in your life, and you're very open about it. Of, hey, I'm praying for these people for this reason, and I really want to be intentional with our time with you here to see what is it specifically that we can be praying for you.
Yeah, that's really good. I appreciate you asking. I mean, I'd say first and foremost would be as a husband, that I am placing my wife, God first and, family second, but really her second. And I struggle. I mean, we've been married 20 years, and I had COVID on our 20-year anniversary because I went on a trip and got sick. I wasn't even really that sick, but I got, I was being selfish. So selfishness, I'd say for me, is something I've struggled with a lot in my life. So, I'm always trying to find ways to put her number one, make her feel that, I could do and say things, but if it's not being received and she's not feeling it, it's really not working. So it's starting with her like this, I could be a better husband to her. And then it would be to be a better father to my children. Like I talked about coaching and leading, and it never stops with me. Like I have a hard time just to be a dad and be with them and be present and not be correcting something, trying to fix something, do this, and it's to the point where, I mean, like Katie's battled me for years. Like they all expect it to, like, oh, well, you're going to say this or do that. Like, they're always a step ahead of me. And I don't like that it's got to that. So I'm trying to pull back, I'm talking to people, I'm reading stuff, but it's hard to undo what's been done, for 20 years plus. So, praying for me as a father, praying for me as a husband, I think would probably be the 2 most important things that I could ask of guys like you and guys around F3 to do for me, for sure.
Heck yeah, man. I appreciate you being vulnerable about that, because the same spiritual journey or spiritual forces at play, right, against our children and our wives are attacking us too, and I remember when we interviewed Dread and Dark Helmet, that was essentially one of the things they were asking for, right? When you're in a position of leadership, you are under attack, right? I mean, there's some verses that specifically say leadership or kind of teaching, which, kind of go hand in hand. And I think we do need to be praying for each other on that ego, selfishness, self-righteousness, pride, all of those things don't get the best of us, because I'm right there with you where it's a challenge. I do one more question. This is a new one, Swiper, so you'll be the first guy to.
All right, good. I'll tell everybody that too. Trust me.
It's kind of neat. You can decline or approve, right? If
it'll be approved, I'm sure.
I want to get your thoughts on legacy when you think about get right, live right, lead right, leave right. What do you want on that tombstone, or what do you want guys to say about Swiper, or people to say?
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I often think about the tombstone exercise, right? Like, what are people going to say when you're gone? I just gravitate towards that they would remember how they felt when they were with me, because oftentimes people don't remember what you say or what you do. They remember how you made them feel. And like I was saying earlier, like in my job, we're selling new relationships. I run a team that does business development. It's like we're meeting people for the first time. I'm always trying to make people comfortable. And I've seen over decades, like when people are comfortable, they like to do business with people, and so the more you can make people comfortable, that they feel good around you, they like to be around you. They like to do business with you. So honestly, like I have tons of customers that are friends. Like we hang out, would go do things. They live in other cities and whatever, but when I go somewhere to do some work, I call up somebody who isn't even really being managed by our group, whatever, just to go on a boat with them or hang out or go on a run. Like I go on runs with customers all the time. So how people felt around me, that they remembered that it was positive, we laughed and joked and they felt good, so it would be something like, I liked being around him, something like that. I was just listening to, which I'm going to use this in a COT, so this will probably ruin it, but I was just on a team meeting, like a town hall meeting, and we run like a podcast entrepreneur studio kind of thing. And they had interviewed Tim Tebow, and we're talking to him, and he gave a statistic, which I thought was really good. He said, optimistic people, or people who are generally optimistic, live 4.4 years longer than other people. I was like, that's really startling statistic, and I like to think I'm optimistic. Like my wife gets mad at me, like, nothing worries you. You don't get mad about anything. I'm always just feeling like we'll figure it out. We'll get through this. It's going to be okay. We can handle it. Like whether it would be tithing, like the money will come back. Like I firmly believe, we're going to give to this charity, whatever. Like I don't worry about the bills. It's all going to work out. And it always has. Like that's what my mom gave me growing up. Like, if you give it away, it'll come back sevenfold. And then the next day you find $20 in your pocket you didn't know you had, or you get this bonus at work or whatever. 100% of my life, it has always happened. Trying to teach my kids that same thing. So it would be, people enjoyed being around me, and, could always kind of feel that optimism, is kind of what I'd want on the tombstone, I think.
Man, I love it. And I know we have probably enough content to keep going, but we'll do a little name-orama, and then we'll put you on the list of guys that are going to come back for round 2. I think I
did make a bunch of notes. I didn't get to any of them. So I had a bunch of stuff written down. I didn't touch any of it. So
no, you didn't.
I did. This is a piece of paper. There's stuff written on here.
Sure.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, I wasn't prepping it all. And I'm like, I should probably write a few things down. Like, I don't know. I should be prepared. Like when I do at work, I go into meetings. I shouldn't say this out loud. Like I don't prepare a whole lot.
Yeah.
I'm just really good at, I know the stuff. I know the material. I hate decks. I hate having paper. Like when people are staring at it, I just want to talk to them, and so generally I'm pretty good in meetings and stuff like that. So I don't prepare a whole lot. I actually prepared a little bit for this, so but
Oh
didn't
man.
come in.
Well,
But it's kind of like when you prepare, you don't need it. If I didn't prepare, I would have needed it probably. So
sure. Well, anything on that list that you're dying to share, or that you wish we
No,
We'll give
it
you
would
one
all
item
be-
off your list.
that
it would all be it would be prideful boasting. It would all be sinful stuff. So I don't think I need to bring it up. It's probably fine. Probably honestly, if I did, it would be about moving around and posting. So like I post up north a bunch. I've queued all over. I have hit every site, like from when I started. All the new ones I haven't hit, but like every site, and so I know guys all over. So when I became a site queue, my first kind of filling out my schedule was all DC guys. I wanted to come in, and so everybody in Sarpy who never leaves got to see new faces. So I had Wait Time, and I had Sparty, and I had Spacebar, and I had Cheap Seats. I had a handful of guys, there's all studs, guys I love, see all the time, so just move around, get around. And that's not even just Omaha. Like, I've posted in 7 or 8 states. I've queued in 3 or 4 states. I queued in Canada and EH'd a guy from Mexico. I had to get that in. Like I queued a workout with a buddy in Canada, and this guy from Mexico just came running by and at the playground and did the Murph with us. And it's a pretty epic video. I was like, just call out in Spanish and like say this and this, and he did it all in Spanish, and it's pretty funny video.
That's out there on Twitter. Maybe I'll try to find that and put it in.
It's out there. It's a pretty good one. And it's my neighbor Slideshow, so I just got to actually come out to a workout last week. He came to Oscar Mike finally that I was queuing last week, and so Slideshow was in that video too, and he's now officially in F3 finally. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
Well, appreciate you, man, and we'll take us out in a name-orama here. I'll start here. Brandon Flehardy, 36, The Plague.
John Whitworth, 31, Pony Express.
Hey,
Express, Josh Project 44, Swiper
approved. Hey, and I do want to give you T-claps because I'm pretty sure the reason we have so many guys with call signs is because you come up with
that was on my list. That was on naming FNGs and call signs. So watching the video of my VQ, just watching it, there was only one callback. I forget who it was, but now literally you can't even hear anybody's name anymore. It's off the charts.
Yeah.
And coming up with it is kind of a sense of pride. So I did have a list of about 8 or 9 I've come up with. We're not going to go through them all now, but the callbacks are pretty epic. And when I go to DC, you don't hear them as much. Like, no one's saying anything. This is kind of weird. Yeah. I was at the farm today. Literally, there was 30 guys. 28 of them had something we were saying back at them.
Yeah. So, my all-time favorite is Girl Dad.
Yeah. Buy me something. That was mine. Dave's, he obviously brought me out. And that one stuck pretty good. So that's a good one.
It's awesome. Well, we appreciate you and love you, man. We'll be praying for you.
I appreciate it, guys. You're the best.
Boys.
Yeah. Have a great day. See ya.